The last Vorthak stronghold was hidden in a system so remote that most galactic maps did not include it. Supreme Apex Vorthak had escaped there with the final remnants of his species, less than 10,000 individuals from a race that had once numbered in the billions. But there was no hiding from the Unity network. Park Mina's distributed consciousness could sense Vorthak life signs across the entire galaxy. Every crystal heartbeat, every psionic thought, every desperate attempt to rebuild their civilization was detected and tracked. "They are trying to activate something," she reported to the human fleet approaching the hidden system. "Energy readings suggest a weapon of massive destructive power." Li Do-yun, now commanding one of the human warships, studied the intelligence reports. "What kind of weapon?" "It appears to be designed to eliminate all carbon-based life in the galaxy," Song Hyun replied from her position leading the attack fleet. The Vorthak would rather destroy everything than accept their own extinction. This was exactly what humanity's ancestors had feared. A species so convinced of its own superiority that it would commit universal genocide rather than lose its dominance. The decision made 3,000 years ago was proving to be correct. Kim Woo-bin analyzed the weapon's construction from the technical data flowing through the Unity network. It uses quantum resonance to disrupt the molecular bonds in carbon-based compounds. Every living thing made of carbon would simply fall apart at the atomic level. "How long until it is ready to fire?" Do-hyun asked. "Based on the energy buildup, maybe 6 hours." The human fleet had been traveling for 3 days to reach this system. They had come prepared for the Vorthak's final desperate move. But seeing it actually happen was still shocking. The Apex would literally destroy all life, rather than admit they were not the galaxy's rulers. On the hidden Vorthak world, Vorthak supervised the weapon's activation personally. Around him, the last scientists and warriors of his species worked frantically to complete their ultimate revenge against the humans who had destroyed them. "The carbon killer will eliminate every human, every plant, every animal in the galaxy," he told his followers. "If we cannot rule, then no one will exist to rule over." But what Vorthak did not know was that humans had been preparing for this possibility for centuries. Hidden among his own technicians were human agents who had infiltrated Vorthak society so deeply that they had been trusted with the most classified projects. Agent Yoon Haeun had spent 50 years disguised as a Vorthak engineer. Surgical modifications had given her crystal skin and altered her brain patterns to fool Vorthak mind readers. She had waited decades for this moment. As Vorthak watched the weapon charging, Haeun quietly activated a device that would turn the carbon killer against its creators. Instead of targeting carbon-based life, it would target the silicon crystal matrix that formed Vorthak bodies. "Weapon activation in 60 seconds, announced the lead technician. "Excellent," Vorthak replied. "The livestock will finally understand the cost of challenging their betters." But when the weapon fired, it was not the humans who died. The quantum resonance pulse spread outward from the hidden world at faster than light speed. As it touched each Vorthak body, their crystal skin began to vibrate at frequencies that tore their molecular structure apart. In seconds, every Vorthak in the system simply dissolved into glittering dust. Vorthak had just enough time to realize he had been betrayed before he crumbled into sparkling fragments that blew away in the recycled air of his command center. Agent Yoon Haeun removed her, disguised as the last echoes of Vorthak voices faded from her mind. After 50 years of pretending to be one of them, she could finally be human again. "This is Agent Haeun," she broadcast to the Unity network. "Final Vorthak stronghold eliminated. The carbon killer has been converted successfully. All targets neutralized." Across the galaxy, Park Mina's consciousness confirmed what every human already knew. The Vorthak life signs that she had been tracking for months were gone. Every single one had been eliminated by their own ultimate weapon. "Vorthak extinction confirmed," she announced. "The threat has been permanently removed." The human fleet arrived at the dead system to find only empty ships drifting in space and abandoned worlds covered in crystal dust. The species that had ruled the galaxy for 3 millennia had finally been eliminated completely. But humanity's work was not finished. With the Vorthak gone, other species throughout the galaxy were free for the first time in thousands of years. Many of them were afraid that humans would simply become the new oppressors. This fear was understandable but wrong. Unlike the Vorthak, humans had no desire to rule over other species. They had fought for freedom, not dominance. Song Hyun led the effort to establish contact with the liberated alien civilizations. "We understand your concerns," she told a gathering of representatives from 50 different worlds. "You have lived under Vorthak tyranny for so long that freedom seems impossible to believe. What do you want from us?" asked a delegate from the Kalarian Republic, a species that had been fighting the Vorthak for centuries. "Nothing," Do-hyun replied. "We want you to be free to develop your own civilizations in your own ways. We will offer help if you want it, but we will not force anything on you." This was a concept that many species found difficult to understand. For 3,000 years, the galaxy had been ruled by beings who demanded absolute obedience. The idea of a powerful species that wanted nothing in return seemed too good to be true. But humans proved their intentions through their actions. Instead of occupying former Vorthak worlds, they helped other species reclaim their original territories. Instead of demanding tribute, they shared advanced technology freely. Instead of imposing human culture, they encouraged diversity. Baek Tae-hyun established the Galactic Freedom Council, an organization where every species had an equal voice in deciding important issues. Humans participated as one voice among many, not as rulers. "Our ancestors taught us that the greatest victory is not conquering your enemies," he explained. "It is creating a galaxy where everyone can live without fear." Lim Soo-jin focused her biological expertise on healing instead of harming. She developed medical treatments that could help species recover from centuries of Vorthak oppression. She also worked to restore ecosystems on worlds that had been damaged by crystal mining. Kim Woo-bin shared human engineering knowledge with anyone who wanted to learn. Soon, dozens of species were building ships and tools using technology that had been hidden for millennia. But perhaps the most important work was done by Park Mina through the Unity Network. Her distributed consciousness helped coordinate peaceful relationships between species that had been enemies under Vorthak rule. She became the communication system that let the galaxy work together instead of fighting each other. Years passed, and the galaxy settled into a new pattern of peace and cooperation. The Vorthak became a cautionary tale told to young beings across hundreds of worlds. They were remembered as a reminder of what happened to species that believed themselves superior to all others. On a quiet world near the galactic edge, an old Lee Do-hyun taught human children about their history. He told them about the time when humans had been slaves, and how their ancestors had been patient enough to plan for centuries before striking back. "Why did we have to kill all of them?" asked a young student. "Could we not have just defeated them and made them change?" Do-hyun considered the question carefully. The Vorthak could not change because they could not see other species as equals. They would have spent forever trying to return to power. Sometimes protecting innocent life means eliminating those who would destroy it. "But how do we know we will not become like them?" asked another student. "Because we remember this lesson," Do-hyun replied. "We remember that the moment any species believes it is better than all others, it becomes a threat to the galaxy. That is why humans must never think of themselves as rulers." The students nodded solemnly, understanding the weight of their heritage. They were the children of the species that had eliminated the galaxy's greatest threat, but they were also responsible for making sure that threat never arose again. In the Unity Network, Park Mina's consciousness monitored the galaxy for signs of new dangers. Not just external threats, but internal ones as well. She watched for any indication that humans might be developing the same superiority complex that had doomed the Vorthak. So far, the signs were encouraging. Human colonies were thriving, but they worked in partnership with their alien neighbors rather than ruling over them. Human technology was advancing, but it was shared freely rather than hoarded as a source of power. The galaxy had learned an important lesson from the rise and fall of the Vorthak. True strength came not from dominating others, but from cooperating with them. The species that had called themselves Alpha were gone forever, and in their place was a community of equals working together toward a better future. And somewhere in the quantum networks that connected human minds across the galaxy, Park Mina smiled as she watched over the peace that her sacrifice had helped create. The long game was finally complete, and humanity had proven that patience and wisdom were more powerful than any weapon. The galaxy was free, and it would remain free as long as humans remembered the cost of that freedom. The attack began at exactly the same moment across 1,000 worlds. As Vorthak overlords prepared for their daily routines of controlling lesser species, Human slaves stopped pretending to be helpless. On the mining asteroid where it all started, Lee Do-hyun activated weapons that had been hidden in the rock walls for months. The frequency generators came online with a sound like screaming metal. Overlord Thexmore watched in horror as the sound waves hit his crystal skin. The mighty Vorthak warrior, who had terrorized humans for decades, began to crack like broken glass. His purple crystal skin developed fractures that spread across his body. Within seconds, he shattered into pieces that fell to the floor with musical chimes. All guard posts report. Do-hyun spoke into the Unity network. Around him, his fellow miners revealed weapons they had been secretly building. Asteroid 77 Alpha is now under human control. Similar reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Park Mina's distributed consciousness coordinated everything through the Unity network. Her voice reached every connected human as she tracked their progress. Proxima Centauri shipyard is under attack, she announced. Captain Song Hyun is leading the assault. At Proxima Centauri, Song Hyun commanded a fleet of human ships that had appeared from nowhere. The stealth technology made them invisible until they opened fire. Vorthak patrol ships tried to respond, but their crystal hulls shattered under the frequency weapons just like their crew's bodies. The massive shipyard that had built Vorthak War vessels for centuries became a cloud of glittering debris in minutes. Song-hyun watched through her ship's cameras as thousand-year-old construction facilities collapsed into twisted metal. Shipyard destroyed, she reported. No Vorthak survivors, moving to secondary targets. On the ground, Baek Tae-hyun led human soldiers in coordinated strikes against Vorthak administrative centers. The humans moved with perfect unity, sharing thoughts and plans through the network. They could predict each other's actions and coordinate complex tactics without speaking. Against this kind of teamwork, individual Vorthak warriors were helpless. Even their mind control powers were useless against unity-connected humans whose thoughts were protected by the network. The slave compounds on Tau Ceti are liberated, Baek Tae-hyun reported. Human casualties are minimal. Vorthak casualties are total. Kim Woo-bin had become the chief engineer of humanity's war machine. From Omega Station, he coordinated the production and deployment of weapons that the Vorthak had never seen before. Nanotechnology weapons that could dismantle crystal skin at the molecular level. Energy disruptors that made Vorthak ships powerless. Biological agents designed specifically to target Vorthak physiology. All manufacturing facilities are operating at maximum capacity, he reported. Weapon production is exceeding consumption. We have more firepower than we need. But the Vorthak were not completely helpless. Their empire had lasted for 3,000 years because they were skilled warriors when they needed to be. As reports of human attacks reached the Apex Council, they began to organize a response. The Vorthak fleet gathered at their capital world of Vorth Prime. Hundreds of crystal ships formed, defensive formations while their crews tried to understand what was happening. For the first time in millennia, the Apex were facing an enemy that seemed to match their power. How is this possible? Demanded Supreme Apex Vorthak, the leader of their species. The livestock have no technology. They have no weapons. They have no coordination ability. The reports suggest otherwise, Supreme One, replied his military advisor. The humans appear to have been hiding their true capabilities for a very long time. Impossible. We have monitored them constantly. We read their minds regularly. We would have detected any deception. But even as he spoke, Vorthak was beginning to understand the horrible truth. The humans had been playing a game that lasted for centuries. They had deliberately appeared weak while secretly preparing for total war. The Vorthak tried to rally their other subject species to help fight the humans. But they discovered that many of their loyal alien servants were actually human agents in disguise. The infiltration was deeper and older than anyone had imagined. Lim Soo-jin's biological weapons began to take effect across Vorthak worlds. The crystal-skinned aliens had never developed immunity to diseases that targeted their specific genetic structure. Plagues spread through their populations with devastating efficiency. Biological phase is proceeding ahead of schedule, she reported to the Unity network. Vorthak immune systems have no defense against synthetic viruses designed for their physiology. The most shocking moment came when the Vorthak tried to activate their most powerful weapon systems. They discovered that the weapons would not respond to their commands. Human agents had infected their computer network centuries ago, waiting for this exact moment. Their own weapons are turning against them, Park Mina observed through the Unity network. Systems they built to control other species are now under our control. Overlord Thexmore had managed to survive the initial attack on the mining asteroid by using emergency shields. But he was trapped in his command center, surrounded by humans who were no longer pretending to be afraid of him. You cannot win, he told them through his mind voice. The Apex have ruled for 3,000 years. We are stronger than any other species. You ruled because we let you rule, Dohyun replied. We needed time to prepare. Now we are ready and you are not. What do you want? Resources? Territory? We can negotiate. We want you extinct, Dohyun said simply. Your species cannot coexist with any other form of life. This is not a war for freedom. This is extermination. Thexmore finally understood the scope of human planning. They had not been preparing for rebellion. They had been preparing for the complete elimination of the Vorthak species. Across the galaxy, the pattern was the same. Vorthak positions fell one after another with devastating speed. Their crystal technology, which had seemed so advanced, proved inferior to human science in every way. The frequency weapons that shattered their bodies. The stealth systems that made human attacks impossible to predict. The biological weapons that turned their own physiology against them. The coordination abilities that let humans work together like a single organism. But perhaps most terrifying of all was the revelation of how long humans had been planning this. Evidence emerged of human agents who had been in place for over 1,000 years. Sleeper agents who had lived their entire lives pretending to be loyal Vorthak servants while secretly preparing for this moment. How long have you been planning this? Thexmore asked as human soldiers surrounded his position. Since the day we first met your species, Dohyun replied. Our ancestors took one look at you and realized you were a threat to all life in the galaxy. Everything since then has been preparation for your removal. The Battle of Vorth Prime became the final major engagement of the war. The Vorthak fleet, desperate to protect their homeworld, faced the full power of humanity's hidden technology. Song Hyun led the attack with ships that could move faster than Vorthak sensors could track. Kim Woo-bin's weapons tore through crystal hulls like they were made of paper. Lim Soo-jin's biological weapons infected entire crews through their ship's life support systems. The battle lasted less than 6 hours. When it ended, the Vorthak fleet was completely destroyed and their capital world was under human control. Vorth Prime is secured, Song Hyun reported. The Apex Council is dead. Organized resistance has ended, but the humans were not finished. Scattered Vorthak populations remained on dozens of worlds. Small groups had escaped in hidden ships. If any survived, they might rebuild and return to threaten other species in the future. Park Mina's consciousness tracked every remaining Vorthak through the Unity network's sensors. Beginning final phase, she announced. No Vorthak must survive to threaten future generations. The systematic elimination of the Vorthak species began. It was not done with anger or hatred, but with the cold efficiency of gardeners removing weeds. Humanity had evolved beyond mercy when it came to existential threats. The galaxy watched in amazement as the 3,000-year reign of the Apex came to an end in just a few months. The species that had called themselves the ultimate predators learned they had been living next to something far more dangerous all along. The humans had finally stopped pretending to be prey. The quantum transfer chamber looked like a metal cocoon, with glowing threads running through its walls. Kim Woo-bin had built it in just 5 days, using instructions that flowed through the Unity network. Every connected human across the galaxy had contributed knowledge to make it possible. Dr. Park Mina stood before the chamber, knowing that stepping inside would change her forever. She would not die, but she would not be the same person anymore either. Her consciousness would spread across thousands of human minds, becoming the central coordinator for their species. Are you ready? Lee Do-hyun asked. Despite everything they had discovered, losing Mina still felt like losing a friend. I have been ready since the moment I learned the truth about our history, Mina replied. Our ancestors made this plan because they knew someone would have to make this sacrifice eventually. She entered the chamber and activated it from inside. The glowing threads became brighter, and suddenly the air filled with a humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. When the light faded, Mina was still there, but something fundamental had changed. When she looked at them, it was like looking through the eyes of every connected human in the galaxy. I am still me, she said. But I am also more than me now. I can see everything our people have been preparing, and Do-hyun, what we have built is incredible. Through the Unity network, she could access the hidden human base inside the black hole. What she found there was beyond anything they had imagined. The base was called Omega Station, and it had been under construction for over 2,000 years. Hidden inside the twisted space-time near the black hole's event horizon, it had grown into a massive facility that could build weapons and ships faster than entire planets. "Show us," Do-hyun said. The quantum transfer chamber activated again, and suddenly they were no longer on the mining asteroid. They stood in a control room that looked out into the impossible swirling energy of a black hole's interior. Around them, the hidden base stretched for kilometers in all directions. Humans worked at stations that controlled manufacturing systems beyond Vorthak understanding, ships that looked like deadly art pieces hung in construction bays, weapons that could crack planets waited in storage areas. But most importantly, they met the humans who had never been slaves. Song-hyun was the tactical coordinator for Omega Station. She had been born free and trained from childhood to fight the Vorthak. When she looked at Do-hyun and his friends, she saw humans who had survived slavery and emerged stronger. "Welcome to the real human civilization," she said. "We have been waiting for the slave populations to reach unity readiness. Now that you have, we can begin the final phase." Lim Soo-jin specialized in biological warfare. She had spent her entire life studying Vorthak physiology and developing ways to exploit their weaknesses. "The crystal skin that makes them so proud is actually their greatest vulnerability," she explained. "It resonates at specific frequencies. The right sound waves can shatter them like glass." Baek Tae-hyun was a strategic planner who had been developing battle tactics for decades. "We know the location of every Vorthak military base, every fleet position, every weakness in their defenses. When we strike, it will be with complete surprise and overwhelming force." But the most amazing discovery was the true scope of human preparation. For 3,000 years, while some humans served as slaves, others had been infiltrating Vorthak society at every level. "We have agents in their government," Song-hyun explained. "Humans who underwent surgical modification to look like Vorthak. They have been feeding us intelligence for centuries." "How is that possible?" Choi Ji-ho asked. "The Vorthak can read minds. They can read normal minds," Lim Soo-jin corrected. "But our agents use Unity-modified consciousness. To Vorthak mind reading, they appear to be loyal, crystal-skinned citizens." The friends learned that human technology had advanced far beyond what the Vorthak possessed. While the aliens had focused on maintaining their empire, humans had focused on developing new forms of science. Nanotechnology that could build or destroy anything at the molecular level. Stealth systems that made objects completely invisible to all known sensors. Energy weapons that could cut through any armor. Most importantly, they had developed ways to turn Vorthak strengths into weaknesses. Their collective mind-speaking ability requires them to broadcast on specific mental frequencies, Baek Tae-hyun explained. "We have built devices that can jam those frequencies or turn them against the Vorthak themselves." Kim Woo-bin studied the human weapons with amazement. "These designs are incredible. How long would it take to build enough for a full-scale war?" "We have been building them for centuries," Song-hyun replied. "The weapons are already distributed to human agents across the galaxy. What we have been waiting for is coordination." That was where Park Mina came in. Her consciousness, now spread through the Unity network, could coordinate simultaneous attacks on thousands of Vorthak positions. Every human resistance cell would strike at exactly the same moment with perfect timing. "But there is something else you need to know," Lim Soo-jin said seriously. "This war will not be about defeating the Vorthak. It will be about eliminating them completely." "What do you mean?" Do-hyun asked. "The Vorthak view all other species as livestock. They cannot be reformed or negotiated with. If we allow any of them to survive, they will eventually rebuild and return to enslaving others. Our ancestors understood this. The final protocol requires complete species extinction." The weight of this decision settled on the group. They were not just planning a rebellion or a war for freedom. They were planning genocide. "Is there no other way?" Do-hyun asked. Park Mina, speaking through the Unity network, shared the accumulated knowledge of thousands of human agents. "For 3,000 years we have studied Vorthak psychology and behavior. They are incapable of seeing other species as equals. Even if defeated, they would spend generations planning their return to dominance. Our choice is simple, Baek Taehyun added. Either they exist or everyone else exists. There is no middle ground with a species that views genocide as natural resource management. The friends realized they were facing the same decision their ancestors had faced 3,000 years ago. But this time, humans were strong enough to make the harder choice. Meanwhile, back on the mining asteroid, Overlord Thexmore was growing increasingly suspicious. His human workers were performing too well. Their coordination was too perfect. Something was very wrong. He ordered a surprise inspection of the mining tunnels, including areas that had been sealed off. What he found made his crystal skin turn pale with shock. The humans had been accessing areas that should have been impossible to reach. They had been using technology that should not exist. Most troubling of all, they had been using it for much longer than he had realized. "Contact the Apex Council immediately," he ordered. "I believe the livestock are more dangerous than we thought." But his message would never reach the Council. Human agents intercepted all Vorthak communications before they left the asteroid. Thexmore's warning disappeared into the quantum networks that humans now controlled. On Omega Station, the final preparations were beginning. Song-hyun coordinated with resistance cells across the galaxy. Lim Soo-jin prepared biological weapons for deployment. Baek Taehyun finalized attack strategies that would hit every major Vorthak position simultaneously. And Park Mina, her consciousness now distributed across millions of human minds, began the countdown to the end of Vorthak dominance. The galaxy was about to learn that the most dangerous predators were not the ones who looked strong, but the ones who had patience to wait for the perfect moment to strike. The perfect moment was about to arrive. The mining drill screamed against the asteroid rock as Lee Do-hyun wiped sweat from his forehead. The air inside the mining station was thick and hot. Around him, dozens of other humans worked without speaking. They had learned long ago that talking too much brought attention from the guards. The guards were not human. They were tall creatures with skin that looked like purple crystal. Their eyes glowed blue, and when they spoke, their voices echoed inside human minds without using words. These were the Vorthak, and they ruled everything. "Move faster, livestock," one guard said directly into the minds of the human workers. The word livestock made Do-hyun's jaw tighten, but he kept working. Getting angry meant punishment, and punishment meant death. For 3,000 years, the Vorthak had controlled the galaxy. They called themselves the Apex, the highest form of life. Every other species served them. But humans were special in the worst way possible. The Vorthak thought humans were the most useless of all creatures. "We cannot read their minds," the Vorthak often said. "They have no special powers. They die quickly and break easily. They are perfect for dangerous work." Dr. Park Mina worked in a different part of the mining station. Her job was to study the rocks and find valuable materials. But she also studied something else in secret. She watched the Vorthak guards when they were not looking. Mina had noticed things about the crystal-skinned aliens. Their bodies were hard like stone, but sometimes she saw small cracks appear when they moved too fast. Their mind-speaking power seemed to make them tired if they used it too much. She wrote these observations in a hidden notebook using code that looked like rock analysis. Young Kim Woo-bin was the best human engineer on the station. He could fix any machine and build new tools from scraps. The Vorthak kept him busy because broken equipment cost them money. Woo-bin had learned to fix things so well that the guards barely watched him anymore. This was a mistake on their part. "The deeper we dig, the stranger things get," Woo-bin told Do-hyun during their short break. They sat in a corner where the guards could not see them clearly. "I found metal down there that I have never seen before. It looks human-made, but that is impossible." Do-hyun looked at his friend carefully. "What do you mean, human-made?" "The metal has patterns on it, symbols. They look like old human writing, but not any human writing I know. And the metal itself is incredible. It is stronger than anything the Vorthak use, but lighter than air." This news troubled Do-hyun greatly. Humans had been slaves for so long that most had forgotten they ever lived differently. The official history said humans had been primitive cave dwellers when the Vorthak found them. They had been given the gift of space travel by their generous masters. But sometimes, in quiet moments, older humans told different stories. They whispered about a time when humans had their own ships and their own worlds. These stories were called lies by the Vorthak, and telling them meant severe punishment. Overlord Thexmore walked through the mining station like he owned everything, which he did. His crystal skin was darker than the regular guards, showing his higher rank. When he looked at the human workers, his blue eyes showed only disgust. "Production is up 12% this month," reported one of his officers. "The humans are working harder than usual." Thexmore made a sound that might have been laughter. "Fear makes good motivation. But watch them closely. Humans are clever in stupid ways. They might try something foolish." What Thexmore did not know was that the humans were indeed trying something. But it was not foolish. That night, when the guards were fewer and the lights were dimmed, Doyen led a small group of humans deep into the new mining tunnels. Park Mina came with them, along with Kim Wubin and 3 other trusted workers. The tunnel walls showed clear signs of recent digging, but also something else. There were older tunnel walls behind the new ones. Much older. "Here," Wubin whispered, pointing to a section of wall that looked different from the rest. "I found this yesterday. Look at this." He pressed his hand against what looked like solid rock. Suddenly, a section of the wall glowed softly and slid away silently. Behind it was a corridor that had been hidden for a very long time. The group moved forward carefully. The hidden corridor was made of the same strange metal that Wubin had found earlier. Symbols covered the walls, glowing faintly in the darkness. The symbols were definitely human writing, but in a style none of them recognized. "This place is old," Park Mina whispered, running her fingers along the symbols. "Very old. Maybe thousands of years old." They walked deeper into the corridor. Soon they reached a large room filled with objects covered in dust. As they looked around, their amazement grew. There were machines that looked like they could travel between stars. There were weapons that seemed far more advanced than anything the Vorthak used. There were computers with screens that still worked after all these years. But the most shocking discovery was a wall covered with pictures and writing. The pictures showed humans in spacesuits exploring other worlds. They showed human cities among the stars. They showed human ships that were beautiful and powerful. "This cannot be real," one of the workers said. "Humans never had this. We were primitive when the Vorthak found us." But Park Mina was reading the writing on the wall. Her face grew pale as she understood what it said. "This is a record," she said slowly. "A record of what really happened. According to this, humans had explored half the galaxy before we ever met the Vorthak. We had colonies on hundreds of worlds. We had technology that was better than theirs in many ways. Then how did we become slaves?" Dohyun asked. Mina pointed to another section of writing. "Because we chose to. When our explorers first met the Vorthak, they saw how cruel and powerful they were. Our ancestors realized that fighting them directly would mean extinction for the human race. So they made a different plan." "What kind of plan?" "They hid our real technology and pretended to be primitive. They let the Vorthak think they had discovered and conquered us. But while we worked as slaves, some humans stayed free in secret. They built places like this and waited." "Waited for what?" Park Mina smiled grimly as she read the final section of text on the wall. "Waited for the right time to remind the galaxy who we really are." The hidden room hummed with ancient power, and the friends realized their world was about to change forever. Dr. Park Mina could not sleep. For 3 days she had been studying the symbols and machines in the hidden room. Every discovery made her more excited and more afraid. The truth about human history was bigger than anything she had imagined. She was not alone in her research. Choi Jiho, who had worked as a rock specialist for 15 years, turned out to know more about old human languages than anyone expected. Hyun Hyun was good with numbers and codes. Kang Si-hyun had been a guard for human workers before joining their group, and he understood how to fight and plan. "Look at this," Jiho said, pointing to a section of wall they had cleaned that morning. "These symbols tell a story about the first meeting between humans and Vorthak. It happened on a world called Kepler 438b over 3,000 years ago." Heian studied her notes. According to this, human explorers had already been watching the Vorthak for 50 years before making contact. They knew exactly what kind of creatures they were dealing with. "Smart ancestors," Si-hyun said grimly. "They saw a species that destroyed everyone they met, so they decided to hide instead of fight." Mina nodded, but her mind was on something else. She had found references to something called the Unity Protocol in several different texts. It seemed to be some kind of communication system that connected human minds together. "Kim Wubin needs to see this," she said. They found Wubin in another part of the hidden complex, working on a machine that looked like a metal chair surrounded by glowing panels. He had been trying to activate it for 2 days. "I think I understand how it works now," he said without looking up. This machine can connect human brains together through some kind of energy field. But it is not like the Vorthak mind speaking. This is better. Better how? Do-hyun asked. He had been coming to the hidden room every night after his mining shifts. The Vorthak can push thoughts into our minds, but they cannot read our thoughts back. This machine lets humans share thoughts freely with each other. It makes us smarter when we work together. Woo-bin had always been good with machines, but the technology in the hidden room was teaching him things he never knew were possible. Every device he fixed revealed new capabilities that seemed like magic. I want to try it, Mina said suddenly. The others looked at her with concern. We do not know if it is safe, Do-hyun warned. We do not know if anything is safe anymore, Mina replied. But if this machine does what I think it does, it could change everything. She sat in the metal chair before anyone could stop her. Woo-bin looked worried but activated the machine. The glowing panels hummed to life, and suddenly Mina's eyes went wide. I can feel all of you, she whispered. I can sense your thoughts, your feelings. But it is more than that. I can feel other humans too. Humans far away from here. Her voice changed, becoming stronger and more confident. There are hidden human groups all over the galaxy. Thousands of them. They have been waiting and preparing just like our ancestors planned. And now they know about us too. The machine had connected Mina to a network of human minds that had been quietly growing for centuries. In secret rooms and hidden bases across 1,000 worlds, humans had been preserving their real history and developing their true capabilities. But the Unity Protocol did more than just connect minds. It made humans smarter and faster. When connected humans worked together, they could solve problems that had seemed impossible before. Overlord Thexmore noticed the changes first. His daily reports showed things that made no sense. Human workers were completing tasks ahead of schedule. Mining accidents had dropped to almost zero. Equipment breakdowns had become very rare. The livestock are acting strangely, he told his second-in-command. They move too smoothly. They work too well together. It is like they can predict each other's actions. Perhaps they are finally learning proper obedience, the other Vorthak suggested. Thexmore's crystal skin darkened with suspicion. Or perhaps they are learning something else. He ordered increased surveillance of the human workers. But the Vorthak had a weakness they did not know about. Their mind-reading powers worked by detecting electrical patterns in brains. The Unity Protocol used a completely different type of energy that the Vorthak could not sense. This meant that connected humans could share information and coordinate their actions without the Vorthak knowing anything about it. Meanwhile, Park Mina was learning more about the galaxy than any human slave was supposed to know. Through the Unity network, she could access information from thousands of human agents who had been gathering intelligence for centuries. The Vorthak have 13 major worlds and over 200 colony systems, she reported to the group. But their empire is not as strong as they pretend. They have been fighting wars with 3 other species for the past century. What kind of wars? Si-hyun asked. His military background made him interested in Vorthak weaknesses. The Kalarians in the outer spiral have technology that can hurt Vorthak crystal skin. The Mendari have developed shields that block Vorthak mind powers. The Zephirites have ships that are faster than anything in the Vorthak fleet. This was incredible news. For 3,000 years, humans had been told that the Vorthak were unbeatable rulers of everything. Learning that other species were successfully fighting them changed everything. But the best discovery was yet to come. Kim Woo-bin had managed to activate what appeared to be a map system. It showed the locations of hidden human facilities throughout the galaxy. Most were small like theirs, but some were much larger. Look at this one, he said, pointing to a spot that seemed to be inside empty space. According to the map, there is a major human base located inside a black hole. That is impossible, Jiho said. Nothing can survive inside a black hole. Nothing using normal technology, Mina corrected. She was still connected to the Unity network and could access information from across the galaxy. But our ancestors developed ways to use the extreme gravity and energy of black holes as power sources. The base is hidden in a pocket of stable space-time just inside the event horizon. What is in that base? Do-hyun asked. Mina's expression became serious. Everything our ancestors prepared for the day when humans would stop pretending to be helpless. Weapons, ships, technology, and detailed plans for something they called the Final Protocol. Which is what? Complete elimination of the Vorthak threat. Not just victory over them. Not just freedom from them. complete removal of their species from existence. The group fell silent as they realized the true scope of their ancestors' planning. For 3,000 years, humans had appeared to be weak and broken slaves. In reality, they had been preparing for a war that would end with only one species surviving. How do we reach this base? Sehyun asked. We need to build a quantum transfer device, Wubin said, studying the technical information flowing through the Unity network. It will let us move instantly across the galaxy using the connected consciousness field. Can you build it? Wubin smiled. With the knowledge I'm getting from the Unity network, I can build things I never dreamed were possible. But there is a cost. What cost? To maintain the Unity connection strong enough for quantum transfer, some of us will have to permanently merge our consciousness with the network. We will lose our individual identities but become part of something much larger. Park Mina was the first to volunteer. I understand what this means, and I choose it willingly. My individual life is less important than the future of our species. As she spoke, the others could feel her thoughts through the Unity connection. Her determination was absolute, and her courage inspired them all. The time for hiding was ending. Soon the galaxy would learn what humans were really capable of.